You know that feeling when you're threading through a tight parking lot at walking speed and your bike starts to wobble? Your heart rate spikes, you tense up, and suddenly you're fighting 500 pounds of machine that's about to go over. Or worse, you're cruising along and a car pulls out. And in that split second, your brain freezes because you've never actually practiced an emergency swerve at real-world speed. Here's the thing. Japanese police riders, the Shirobai, can handle a 900-pound touring bike loaded with gear like it's a damn bicycle. They navigate cones at 2 miles per hour without a single wobble. They execute full-lock U-turns in a single lane. They emergency brake from highway speed, and the bike stays perfectly planted. The difference isn't talent. It's 15 specific mechanical skills that push control back in your favor when most riders panic. These are not riding tips you pick up on a weekend course. These are the foundational techniques that separate riders who drop bikes in parking lots from riders who have never put a bike down in 20 years. And the brutal reality? Western training does not teach most of them. Let's start with the 4 skills that eliminate the stupid drops. The parking lot tips, the driveway disasters, the slow speed humiliation that cost you $1,000 in scratched fairings and bruised ego. Skill 1 is rear brake drag. Most riders think the rear brake is just for helping at low speed. Wrong. Japanese riders use the rear brake against the throttle to create drivetrain tension. You are essentially putting the bike in a mechanical bind. The throttle wants to go forward and the brake wants to hold back, and that tension creates rock-solid stability at walking speed. It is an anchor. No more wobble, no more tippy feeling. Your bike becomes a gyroscope. The problem is, Western training tells you to avoid riding the brakes because it is bad for the bike. That is car thinking. On a motorcycle at 2 miles per hour, rear brake drag is the only thing keeping you upright. Skill 2 is the tank grip lock. Your knees do 90% of the work, not your hands. A death grip on the bars means zero feedback from the front tire. You cannot feel what the contact patch is doing, and you cannot feel when traction is about to break. Japanese riders clamp their knees on the tank so hard their hands are practically resting on the grips. Light hands let you feel every micro movement. That feedback is what lets you catch a slide before it becomes a crash. Most riders squeeze the bars like they are strangling a snake and then wonder why they cannot feel anything until it is too late. Skill 3 is head position commitment. This is not the lazy look where you want to go advice you have heard 1,000 times. This is an aggressive physical chin to shoulder lock. You force your head to turn so far it is uncomfortable. Because your body follows your head through pure mechanics, your shoulders rotate, your hips shift, and the bike has no choice but to follow. Most riders do a weak head turn where their eyes move, but their chin stays pointed forward. That is not commitment. That is why you run wide in corners and need 3 lanes to make a U-turn. Skill 4 is the friction zone hold. Japanese riders live in the friction zone for minutes at a time. Western training teaches you to avoid it because instructors say it will burn your clutch. That is nonsense. Modern clutches can handle friction zone work all day. The friction zone is where you have total control over power delivery. You can modulate speed with millimeter precision. You can hold the bike at a dead stop on an incline without touching the rear brake. But most riders treat the friction zone like it is lava and get through it as fast as possible. That is why you cannot control your bike at 2 miles per hour. You are either on the throttle or off it. There is no middle ground. Here is why these 4 matter. They are the foundation. Every other skill on this list depends on these being unconscious. If you cannot hold your bike stable at walking speed with rear brake drag and friction zone control, you are not ready for emergency swerves at 60 miles per hour. If you do not have light hands from a proper tank grip, you cannot feel traction loss. If your head position is lazy, your body position will always be wrong. Skip these, and the advanced techniques will just expose your lack of control faster. Keep in mind that no skill makes you invincible, but these are the exact techniques that reduce crashes when everything goes wrong. Now we get into the skills that actually save your life. The ones you need when a car pulls out, when gravel appears mid-corner, when a dog runs into the road. These are do it wrong once and you are done scenarios. There are no second chances at 60 miles per hour. Skill 5 is the two-step swerve. This is not the vague push left, go left countersteering concept most riders think they understand. This is a specific punch and hold technique. You push the bar hard and fast, a sharp punch, then immediately hold that pressure. The bike moves 3 feet laterally in a fraction of a second. Most riders do this wimpy progressive push that takes forever. By the time the bike moves, you have already hit whatever you were trying to avoid. The Japanese drill this until the punch becomes instinctive. You see the threat. Your hand punches the bar before your brain even registers what is happening. That is the difference between missing the car door by 6 inches and collecting it with your shoulder. Skill 6 is front-end pre-loading. Before you grab a handful of brake, you squeeze the sponge. You're compressing the front suspension just enough to set the geometry. The fork dives slightly, weight transfers forward, contact patch grows. Now when you apply real brake force, the suspension is already loaded and the tire is ready to work. Stabbing the brake without preloading is why most riders lock the front and go down. The fork compresses violently, the geometry changes too fast, the tire can't keep up. Preloading takes maybe a quarter of a second. That quarter of a second is the difference between a controlled stop and a trip to the hospital. Skill 7 is the progressive squeeze. You increase brake pressure as weight transfers forward. The math is simple, but 99% of riders brake backwards. They grab hard at first, when the front tire has minimal load, then ease off as weight comes forward and the tire actually has grip. That is completely backwards. You start soft and squeeze harder as the fork compresses and weight shifts. Japanese riders call this building pressure. You are matching brake force to available traction in real time. Most riders do the opposite, hard, then soft, which is why they either lock the front or take twice as long to stop. Skill 8 is vision targeting in emergencies. In a panic, your eyes lock on the threat. It is pure survival instinct. You stare at the car, the pothole, the guardrail. Where you look is where you go. Japanese training drills you to physically force your head toward the escape route, even when every fiber of your being wants to stare at the danger. They practice this with cones. You ride toward a wall of cones at speed, and at the last second, you snap your head to the gap. Your body follows, the bike follows, but it requires overriding your most basic instinct. Most riders never practice this, so when the moment comes, they fixate on the threat and ride straight into what they are trying to avoid. Skill 9 is the rear brake recovery. When the rear end starts to slide, you don't chop the throttle. You stabilize the bike by removing shock, not by forcing control. If you were on the throttle, ease off smoothly. If you were braking, ease pressure smoothly. The goal is to let traction return without snapping the chassis. Rear brake can help only if the rear wheel is not already locked, and using it blindly is how riders high-side themselves into orbit. Chopping the throttle is what turns a manageable slide into a violent high side. The rear wheel can suddenly regain traction while it is still sideways, and the bike can snap upright so fast it launches you into orbit. Japanese riders practice this deliberately. They induce rear slides in low traction, controlled environments just to learn the feel of smooth recovery. Most riders never slide the rear on purpose, so when it happens for real, their panic response is to chop the throttle and fly. Emergency skills keep you alive when things go wrong. These next 5 skills give you options when the perfect line disappears. Real roads have gravel mid-corner, oil patches in intersections, potholes where you need to brake, and cars doing unpredictable, stupid things. Precision control means you can adapt instead of just hoping your original plan works out. Skill 10 is trail braking for line control. This is light front brake pressure that you carry into the corner and release gradually as lean increases. You are not stabbing the brake. You are using it to keep the front tire loaded and the geometry tight. The front tire has maximum grip when it is loaded with weight. Trail braking keeps that load on through turn entry, which means you can tighten your line without waiting for the bike to settle. Most riders release all brake pressure before they even start leaning. That unloads the front, the geometry goes slack, and they need twice the space to make the turn. Japanese riders maintain brake pressure through the initial lean, then smoothly release as they add throttle at the apex. It is a seamless transition from braking to accelerating with zero dead time where the bike is just coasting. But this requires feel. If you release too slow, you will run wide. If you release too fast, the bike will stand up. The drill is simple. Practice in a decreasing radius turn where you have to tighten mid-corner, or you will run off the road. Skill 11 is body position timing. You move your body before the turn, not during. Western riders are always a half-second late. They initiate the turn, then start shifting their weight. By that point, the bike is already committed to a line, and your body movement does nothing. Japanese riders pre-position. They shift their weight to the inside before they even start turning. The bike tips easier because the center of gravity is already moved. You need less lean angle, and you have more traction margin. But most riders wait until they are mid-corner to move, which is why they run wide and need the whole lane to make a simple turn. Skill 12 is outside peg weight. In a turn, weight the outside foot peg, not the inside. This creates a mechanical advantage through leverage. You push down on the outside peg while your body hangs to the inside. The bike responds by turning tighter with less actual lean angle. It is the same principle as a lever. Most riders either weight both pegs equally or instinctively push the inside peg, and that does nothing. Weighting the outside peg is what lets you carve tight lines without scraping hard parts. Japanese riders drill this until it becomes automatic. Most Western riders never even think about their feet. Skill 13 is push-pull countersteering with relaxed grip. It is not just push the bar. One hand pushes while the other relaxes. You do not fight the bars, you guide them. Grip pressure stays light enough that you can wiggle your fingers mid-corner. If your forearms are burning, you are steering wrong. Fast corrections come from firm, brief pushes, not constant pressure. You push, the bike responds, you release. Most riders maintain constant pressure on the bars like they are arm wrestling the bike. That kills feedback. You cannot feel what the front tire is doing when you are white-knuckling the grips. Japanese riders use just enough pressure to initiate the turn, then they let the bike do the work. The push-pull technique means your inside hand pushes while your outside hand stays light or even pulls slightly. This creates a smooth, controlled input instead of a jerky shove. Why precision matters comes down to this. Perfect conditions are rare. Most of your riding happens on imperfect roads with imperfect traction and imperfect visibility. These 5 skills give you the control to handle whatever shows up. You can tighten your line when gravel appears. You can adjust mid-corner when a car drifts into your lane. You can make the bike do exactly what you need it to do instead of just hoping it cooperates. That is the difference between a close call and a crash. Skill 14 is the clutch slip technique. Most riders think the clutch is binary. It is either engaged or it is not. Japanese riders use clutch slip to modulate power delivery in low traction situations. Your throttle is too coarse. Even the smoothest wrist cannot match the precision of slipping the clutch. When you are on gravel, wet paint, metal grates, or any surface where traction is sketchy, feed power through clutch slip instead of throttle control. Keep the throttle steady and modulate with the clutch lever. This gives you millimeter-level control over how much power reaches the rear tire. Most riders try to be smooth with the throttle and end up either spinning the tire or being so timid they nearly stall. Clutch slip is the fine-tuned control that keeps you in the sweet spot. Skill 15 is the combined brake dance. You are using front and rear brakes at the same time, but with different pressures for different purposes. The front brake is your stopping power. That is where 70% of your braking force comes from. The rear brake is not just a backup. It is your stability and attitude control. You use the rear brake to keep the chassis settled, to prevent the rear from getting light, and to adjust the bike's pitch under braking. Japanese riders modulate both brakes independently, in real time. They might be at 80% front and 20% rear, then shift to 60% front and 40% rear as the situation changes. Most riders either use the front brake only, or they use both brakes equally as if they were driving a car. That is leaving control on the table. The rear brake is a tool for chassis management, not just a secondary stopping device. Here's the training gap nobody wants to talk about. Western motorcycle courses teach you to pass a test. You learn the minimum skills to get your license and not die immediately. Japanese police training teaches you to handle a bike in every possible scenario. They spend months on slow speed control before they ever get near highway speed. They practice emergency maneuvers until the muscle memory is burned in so deep they can execute perfectly while their conscious brain is busy with traffic. Western training is about checking boxes. Japanese training is about building unshakable competence. Why most riders never learn these skills comes down to ego and impatience. Learning clutch slip and combined braking requires hundreds of hours of deliberate practice in a parking lot. You're going to look like a beginner. You're going to feel stupid riding in circles at 5 miles per hour while sport bikes blast past on the street. Nobody wants to admit they need to go back to basics, so they skip the foundation work and jump straight to advanced riding, which just means going fast without the control to back it up. Then they crash and blame the bike, the road, or bad luck. The reality check is this: these skills are not actually advanced. They are fundamental. We just call them advanced because so few riders have them. A rider who has mastered these 15 skills is not doing anything superhuman. They are just doing what the bike was designed to do when operated correctly. The bike has always been capable of tight U-turns, emergency swerves, and stable slow-speed control. Most riders just never learned how to access that capability. Japanese training does not create better bikes. It creates better riders who can actually use the machine they are sitting on. Let us talk about what it actually takes to learn this stuff. Japanese police riders spend over 200 hours drilling these skills before they are allowed on patrol. 200 hours. That is not 200 hours of riding. That is 200 hours of deliberate practice on specific techniques. You are not going to master rear brake drag, clutch slip, and combined braking in a weekend course. You are not going to nail the two-step swerve after watching a YouTube video. This takes time. The practice structure that actually works starts with skills 1 through 4 until they are completely unconscious. Rear brake drag, tank grip, head position, friction zone control. You practice these in an empty parking lot at walking speed until you can execute them perfectly without thinking. That foundation takes 20 to 30 hours minimum. Only then do you add one emergency skill at a time. You practice the two-step swerve for 5 hours before you move to front-end preloading. You drill progressive squeeze for another 5 hours. You do not stack skills until the previous one is automatic. The common mistakes are predictable. Riders try to practice at speed because slow speed work feels boring. They skip the foundation skills because they think they already know how to ride. They practice without a plan or measurable progress, just riding around aimlessly hoping they get better through osmosis. That does not work. You need specific drills with specific goals. Can you hold your bike at a standstill on a slope for 30 seconds using only friction zone? Can you execute a two-step swerve and move exactly 3 feet laterally? Can you stop from 30 miles per hour in under 40 feet? If you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. The financial reality is simple math. These skills will save you thousands in insurance claims, repair bills, medical costs, and increased premiums. A single parking lot drop costs $1,000 in cosmetic damage. A low side from poor braking technique costs $5,000 in bike repairs, plus whatever your body damage runs. A high side from chopping throttle in a slide can total your bike and put you in the hospital. The practice is free. Crashes are expensive. You are either investing time now in a parking lot or you are paying later on the street, when physics does not care about your excuses. The bottom line is this: you either do the work or you do not. Most riders will not. They will watch this video, think it is interesting, and then go ride the same way they always have until something goes wrong. The riders who actually practice even 3 of these skills will never be in the drop my bike in a parking lot club. They will never panic brake into a locked front wheel. They will never target fixate into the exact thing they are trying to avoid. They will be the ones who have been riding for 20 years without a single crash, while everyone else collects insurance claims and war stories. So here is the reality. Most riders will watch this and do nothing. They will nod along, maybe practice rear brake drag once in a driveway, then forget about it. The ones who actually drill even 3 of these skills eliminate the most common reasons bikes get dropped in parking lots. Which skill are you going to practice first? Drop a comment and let me know.